Well, joining me now is Arizona Senator Mark Kelly. Senator, really good to have you. You come from an interesting state right now, especially. Tell me how your constituents feel about this bill.
Well, I've been traveling across the state over the last couple months. I live in Tucson, but Phoenix and Sierra Vista, Clarkdale, places like this. And it's a horrible piece of legislation. People are fearful. People who are sick and rely on Medicaid could potentially lose their insurance. I was feeding some kids some school lunches just the other day. These kids, many of them might not have that opportunity, and in some cases, it's the only meal they get. And Katie, this is just so Republicans can give a big tax cut to the wealthiest Americans. And on top of it, $3.3 trillion to the debt. It's bad legislation. But I also want to say what you were talking to the last guest. Like, politically, if this passes, this is a political gift for Democrats, right? I mean, Republicans recognize that. At the same time, we are fighting against this legislation, even though we know it's not in the best interest of us politically, but it's in the best interest of the American people. We don't want to see 17 million people lose their health care coverage. So I think people are realizing how bad this is, and people just need to keep speaking out. We can still beat this thing.
So just a few facts about your state. In Arizona, approximately 2 million people rely on Medicaid. It's also known there as the Arizona Health Care Cost Containment System. 4% of rural hospitals in Arizona are at the brink of closure. An analysis from KFF, the Kaiser Foundation, reports roughly 320,000 Arizonans could lose their health insurance over the next decade. And roughly 884,000, nearly a million people received SNAP benefits in 2022. Are these people, are they feeling motivated to vote over this? I know we're far off from the next presidential election. I know Arizona doesn't have a statewide election coming up. But is this something that they're going to hold on to over the next 3 years?
Well, if they lose their health insurance, and I think you're right about those numbers, 320,000 people like, Kiana Brown, a woman I met who has 2 kids or 2 or 3 kids she adopted through foster care. One of them has significant health care needs because they came from foster care. Her kids get Medicaid. She told me that she feels like the Republicans are burning down my house and my kids are still inside. Yeah, I think folks like Kiana Brown and other people that I have met and talked about this issue, yeah, sure, they're going to remember. But we still have an opportunity here. I'm going to offer an amendment here just to stop people who make $100 million a year from getting a tax cut. I mean, that's common sense that I think most Americans would agree with. I expect my Republican colleagues, at least most of them, to vote against it.
Do you have the numbers on that? How many Americans make $100 million a year and what sort of revenue that would bring in?
Well, it's more than it used to be, and we've done this big, giant transfer of wealth over the last several decades from middle-class people to the wealthiest Americans, where the 3 richest Americans now, I think, they own about the same amount of wealth as the bottom 50%. But people who make over $100 million a year, it's not a ton of people. Why should they get a tax cut when middle and working class people, their expenses are going to go up if they lose their health care coverage? Or, by the way, if we kill all these energy projects across the country, their energy costs are going to go up. I mean, we've got this opportunity with AI to add these data centers. They need power. 95% of the energy that we've added to the grid over the last year it's been solar, wind, and hydroelectric, not oil and gas.
Yeah, and Arizona is interesting because you guys have so much sun during the year, and yet it is hard to harvest solar power individually, or even through a grid in Arizona. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, that there's a special interest in Arizona that makes it essentially more expensive to get solar power than it does to get power from gas or from oil.
Well, that's what this excise tax is, right? That they're trying to put in the legislation is for solar projects that you're going to have to pay more for it. Democrats, we've been trying to bring down the cost of all kinds of energy so the American consumer has to pay less. Hey, you're right about the sun. I was just talking to Gabby a little while ago. She said it's going to be 110 degrees in Tucson today. That's really, really hot. We've got a lot of solar, and that is an opportunity not just for Arizona, but for the entire country. You know, our grid system is very interconnected. When we have excess power, we can sell it somewhere else. You know, except for Texas, but the rest of the country is pretty connected.
Yeah, they're on their own grid. It is interesting because Jacob Soboroff and I were doing a story in our documentary series called The Swamp. I think this one didn't end up airing because the pandemic hit, but it was all about how much more expensive it was to harvest solar energy in Arizona and how it could essentially be free. Arizonans could make money off of all of that sun individually, but there was a special interest involved that didn't want it to be that way. Senator Mark Kelly, always great to have you. Thank you for joining us.